Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I'm starting my second set of Kendra's Card Challenge number 9. If you're not familiar with Kendra's Card Challenge, I'll leave a link to everything in the description box below, but essentially it's a fabulous free resource. So this PDF is made available by Kendra. Every quarter, she puts out a new challenge, and the PDF file includes what you see here. So, a cutting guide for cutting down 6 sheets of pattern paper, and then 15 card sketches. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less, but in Kendra's Card Challenge number 9, there will be 15. And the card sketches are color coded and labeled so that you know exactly the dimensions of all the mats and layers, as well as which pieces of pattern paper come from which of the 6 initial sheets that you pick. And so it's really, really great, and you have just so much inspiration to work with here. Even if you don't play along with the challenge, I still feel like it's a really fantastic resource. For this set, I am going to use the My Favorite Things Rainbow Love paper pad, and I'm going to approach this rather differently from how I've done Kendra's Card Challenge in the past. I first became aware of it, I think, at number 7. So, excuse me, I have done it a couple of times now. And I always, when I'm picking my 6 sheets of pattern paper, I actually always look at the card sketches to see which papers are combined with each other, because not every single pattern paper is actually combined with every other sheet that you choose in that initial set of 6. And so that's why I always look at the sketches to see, which ones get combined together, and that way I can make sure that those will actually look good together when I make my selections. For this go round though, I'm going to pick them completely at random. So these papers are single-sided, as you can see, and I'm just giving it a good shuffle, and I'm just randomly picking and assigning the papers that I've chosen. And this paper pad, I think in particular, works really well because it is a rainbow paper pad. So all of the colors are used in all of the patterns. And I like to keep all of these, my cut segments in these accordion index file folders. And that way I can just cut all 6 sheets at the same time and then organize them, because when you're looking at the cutting guide, it's got a lot of different labels. So the scissor icon is going to indicate your first cut, so that's where you make your first cut. Each segment, each dimension for the pieces is labeled, so the numbers that you see are measurements of that length. And the numbers that are shown in the circles are the card sketch that segment or the section is used on. And then each section also has arrows, and that shows you which way is up when you are going to place that piece on the particular sketch it's used on. So if you're looking at a particular cutting guide and all of the arrows are actually facing in the same direction, then that's one where you can actually use a directional paper. So if you have a design that actually, has a proper direction and it needs to be, for example, a paper that has maybe some typography or some writing on it, and there's a specific way that it should be oriented, then you want to look for a one of the papers where all of the arrows are actually pointed in the same direction. So here on this one, for example, you can see the top 2, the arrows are pointed up, but that large one at the bottom, it was pointed to the right. Here's one where all of the arrows do point in the same direction. If you look at all 4 sections that this sheet gets cut down into, each section has an arrow on it that's pointed up. So even though I am using papers that I feel like they're for the most part non-directional, but sometimes you would prefer, for example, your stripes to run horizontally, and sometimes you prefer them to run vertically. So that might be something that you want to be mindful of. Here's another one where all of the arrows are pointed in the same direction. They happen to be pointed to the left here. And so for this pattern, I kind of, for me anyways, it feels more natural for the scalloped edge to be towards the bottom. So that's how I'm orienting this particular paper as I cut it. So that's one thing to be mindful of. And the cutting guides are fantastic. There's just so much information packed in here. And so just be sure that you look for that scissor icon that will show you where your first cut needs to be. And then with your subsequent cuts, you just want to make sure that, for example, here, you want to make sure that you identify the next cut line that's going to go from one edge or one end to the next without intersecting or going through another cut line, so that you're not accidentally cutting up a segment that should be, whole. So that is the straight cuts. Now this particular pattern or this particular paper does have a diagonal cut, but that's not as intimidating as you might think. So I like to just make sure I get all of the other cuts done first, and that way I can just be left with the rectangular block that has the diagonal cut through it. So I want to cut off this 1-inch section off the right here. So now all I'm left with is just this rectangle. And as I mentioned, all of the lengths of each segment are indicated for you. So all I'm doing is measuring those lengths, transferring them to my pattern paper, and making a pencil mark. And then all I have to do is just line up my pencil mark with my cutting blade, and then just cut straight and, connecting them from pencil mark to pencil mark. And that gives me my diagonal cut. So all of my papers have been cut now, and I've sorted and organized them into my file folders. And what I'll do is I'll probably break up this into multiple videos. So initially I was thinking I would do this in real time, but as you can imagine, it does take quite a bit of time to cut and make 15 cards. So I decided to go ahead and speed up this video, and what I will do differently this time around, the first was to pick my papers at random. The second thing I'll do differently is I'm actually going to create my cards basically up to the point where you see it as it's represented here in the card sketches, where you don't see a specific focal image or specific sentiments. Card sketches generally don't have that. And so I'm going to actually create to that point where all my card needs is a focal image and a sentiment. I feel like, one of the things I was thinking about in terms of a practical way to approach Kendra's card challenge is this could be a really fantastic way to have a bunch of cards that are maybe about 80% made up. And then when you actually need a card for a particular occasion, for a particular person, all you have left to do is stamp color or collage up some ephemera and add a sentiment, and then you're done. So you just need that last little 20%. And so I thought that would be a, just in terms of, practicality, a really interesting way to approach this challenge. Of course, if you do play along with Kendra's card challenge, you can win prizes if you complete all 15 card sketches, and you do have 3 opportunities to enter. So January was one opportunity, and we still have February and March, and you do have to complete a full set of 15 cards for each entry. So what I've gone ahead and done is I've pulled out some of my favorite nesting dies. I've pulled out a lot of solid color cardstock, and now I'm going to go ahead and create each of the card sketches. Now in this video, I'll probably be able to finish, I think I've left 3 cards, the first 3 card sketches in this video. And what I'll do though is I'll just be picking out some mats and layers. And what's great about Kendra's card challenges is that she always puts dimensions even for the mats and layers. So our pieces of pattern paper, of course, had specific dimensions, but when you look at the card sketch, everywhere that is represented by white, gray, or black, that's completely your choice what you want to use there. So you could do what I'm doing, where I'm using solid color cardstock. You could emboss a panel, you could ink up a background, you can leave it just plain and have the card base come through. So that's all completely up to you. And if you want to cut additional pattern papers, you could do that too. It doesn't have to just be, solid color cardstock. Which is what I'm using this time around. And what's wonderful is that all of those different mats and layers do have dimensions, so it's easy to kind of cut everything down. And when you see different shapes, like the banner flag on the sketch there at the top, or the square on the sketch at the bottom, again, you have a lot of freedom and flexibility to use whatever you'd like. So I've just picked out some different shapes and nested shape dies that I'm going to use, and I feel like this approach is going much more quickly because I don't have a focal image in mind. I don't have a sentiment in mind. So I don't actually need to adapt the sketches to the focal images, whether it's maybe a die cut or a stamped image. I'm actually sticking to the sketch more or less, and that's always your choice how much or how little you want to stick to the precise measurements of a sketch. But in this go round, I'm actually sticking to it fairly closely. A couple of adaptations here and there, but more or less I'm sticking to the sketch. And so that's why it's going a lot more quickly than this challenge has been for me in the past. So I'm going to be really curious to see how my final cards end up. And so that's definitely one thing that is very, very different from how I've approached this, because usually I kind of have an idea for how I want to use a card or what I want to have as the focal image. And here I'm not even giving that a thought at all. So what I'll do, there's not much left in this video, but the last thing that I want to mention is that if you do want to play along with the challenge, you'll want to join Kendra's Card Challenge Facebook group. And that's where you can submit your official entry into the challenge. And every month Kendra does pick prize winners, and so you don't have to wait until the end of the quarter to see if you've won anything. And so if you do submit entries each month during the quarter, then you'll have more chances to win at the end of the quarter when Kendra chooses the final set of winners. And among the things that you can win are gift certificates donated by the generous sponsors. And if you visit the Kendra's Card Challenge website, you can see a full list of the sponsors, but they include companies such as the Not Too Shabby Shop, Cat Scrappiness, Scrappy Tales, TLC Designs, Whimsy Stamps. Lots and lots of fabulous, very generous companies have donated. And in fact, I won a complete Crafty Courtyard kit from Pink and Main. So not only are there gift certificates available, but there's also there are some companies that have donated prize bundles, and so really fabulous and fun opportunity. But to officially enter, you do need to join the Kendra's Card Challenge Facebook group. I'll leave a link to it in the description box below. And then there will be an album, an official challenge entry album. And so once you finish your set of 15 cards, you'll want to upload a photo of all 15 cards into the official challenge album. So here's a final look at the card sketches that I've completed. Again, these are just taken to the kind of that 80% mark where I've left some space, and these are ready to use for when I need. And I will do a final video at the end of this series and show you the final cards. But until then, the next video in my series will show the next set of sketches, again taken to this point where all it needs is a focal image and a sentiment. Thanks for joining me today. Until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.